What's good, Tachie Family? Welcome back to the channel. It has been such a long time.
A long time, and a lot has happened.
As you guys would know if you follow us on our other socials. I guess we should get into like why we haven't posted, but as you can see by the title, we're gonna go through our birth story, and if there's any other questions, you guys can drop them below, and we'll do a part 2 because I know you guys have a lot of questions, but we'll try and answer as much as we can.
So the reason why we didn't really post was because we did move out of our old place and into George's mum's place, and obviously the lighting wasn't the best, and we just didn't want to pop up videos that weren't good quality. And we're like, you know, wait till we get our new place, which we haven't shown you guys yet. We'll do a house tour soon.
We're still getting some furniture, so it's coming.
Yes. And also the pregnancy and everything was just hitting us so quick. George's belly was growing so big, like we're just like, what the hell's happening?
Huge. Let's like insert a picture.
Yeah, we'll put a pic in. It was honestly crazy.
It was just a lot. Like we were just kind of in the moment, enjoying the pregnancy.
Yeah, 100%.
Going through the motions. I have morning sickness. I have migraines. I was tired. By the end of it, I felt like I couldn't breathe. It looked like I had like 3 babies inside of me. It was a lot. And I went through pregnancy during summer.
Yeah.
And also we were looking for a place. As you know, the market in Brisbane. We're also deciding whether we wanted to buy a house or rent a house. There was just a lot going on.
There was.
Plus we had to buy everything, get prepared for our baby, which we will reveal him very soon. You guys have obviously seen him on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, but he'll make an appearance in this video if he wakes up, but he's having a nap. So now we're settled in, settling into parenthood and making sure we're in the right headspace before we jump back into YouTube.
100%.
But we're gonna go hard, right, babe? We keep saying that, we keep taking these little breaks, but we're really trying to be dedicated to YouTube as much as we are to TikTok and Instagram as well.
But before we go any further, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know you guys are excited to see little Zeke.
He's coming.
And if you have any more questions, just drop them down below. We'll get to them. We'll make a part 2.
Yeah, I put a little story thing on my Instagram, and you guys sent me a whole bunch of questions. I've also gotten like some questions on TikTok as well. So I'm gonna try and address like the main ones like that we got quite often, and we'll also just tell you what happened with the birth and Zeke's first couple of weeks of life and stuff like that, because I know you guys want to know a lot about that. But yeah, if there's anything you want to know about like my pregnancy or anything we don't address in this video, please, we will do a part 2. I know we were going to do a pregnancy Q&A and we never got to, but if we did pregnancy and the birth and Zeke and everything in this one video, you'd be here for 2 hours. So we're just going to do the birth, I think, and those type of questions. Well, a lot of people want to know how far along I was. They kept changing my due date between like the ultrasound people, my doctor, the hospital. So I was technically, from my original due date, 40 weeks plus 3 days, but it got adjusted by the ultrasound person, so I could have also been kind of close to 41 weeks. So it just kind of depends what date you want to take. But yeah, I was a little bit over. I wasn't crazy, you know, amounts over. But in saying that, I was probably getting Braxton Hicks for about, what, at least a month prior to giving birth.
The first time was a little crazy because you're like, what's this feeling?
Yeah, and everyone said like Braxton Hicks aren't supposed to be painful, Braxton. But my experience of them was painful. It didn't even feel like a contraction or a fake contraction. It felt like I could feel his head pushing down there so hard, like almost like, I don't know, thumping me down there. But that was happening, yeah, for about 4 or 5 weeks before he was born, and it would happen about once or twice a week. I don't know, I have a feeling, and so does my mom and even Perry, we think he wanted to come out a lot earlier than he actually did, because he was like pushing down there. Anyway, so that's a little bit of a backstory. So it's a Sunday, let's set the scene. It's Sunday, it was around 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, obviously. The night before, the Saturday night, I was actually having those Braxton Hicks again. We had our friends over, and I was like almost like crying and screaming. Like it didn't feel like contractions. It felt like him like pushing down there. Like I had to like
She even thought that George was going to labor as well. She was like, you guys need to go to the hospital. There's something wrong.
She's like, I think you're in labor. And I was like, oh, I don't know. So I had that on the Saturday night. Then they were there for about 2 or 3 hours. And then it just stopped. And
You had
slept.
a shower.
Yeah, I had a shower.
And then you felt good.
I slept through the night. I had the whole day the next day. Luckily, Perry and I had a relaxing day on the Sunday. We're just on the couch, chilling. And then, yeah, in the afternoon, the late afternoon, I was like, oh my gosh. This is it, Perry. They feel like cramps. It feels like I need to go to the toilet. I'm having contractions. Like, I'm definitely having contractions. So obviously, like, I call my mom and like, I'm like, it's happening. And it wasn't painful at this point. I get cramps every period. So it was not painful. It was just like, oh, it's happening. So we just kind of still watched TV. I got something to eat. What was my last meal? I think we got Macca's, didn't we?
Probably. Macca's is around the corner.
Macca's or KFC. I was just like, let's just, you know,
easy option.
I'm not going to cook. Let's get me some food now. Because I know also when you're in labor, you can't eat. So I was like, let me go get my last meal. So Perry went and got me some food. We ate. We chilled on the couch. Yeah, probably after 4 hours, that's when they got a bit painful at around like 8 p.m. And then I was like, oh, this is a bit painful. And I was just, you know, bouncing on my ball. Perry was rubbing my back. I was having a couple of hot showers. And then it went through to about midnight. And by midnight, they were quite painful. I was still breathing through them though. And they were happening every 5 minutes for about a minute long. Because I was tracking them with the little app. And that's when they say to go into the hospital. So I was like, it's time, Perry. Like, let's, you know, we got the baby bag. It was already packed, but we just made sure everything was in it. Yeah, we got into the car.
Your water hasn't broken, by the way.
Oh yeah, my water didn't break. I was just having contractions. So think about it. It was from like 3 or 4 p.m. It's now midnight. So what's that, like 8 hours? So I had been having contractions for 8 hours, and I'd probably been having painful contractions, yeah, for about 4 hours. So my mum had said to us, you know, when you guys are ready to go to the hospital, come to mine and I'll drop you in, because if you go, by the way, we went to the Marta in Brisbane, and as you know, parking there is ridiculously expensive, and it's also like, what, like at least 10-minute walk to the actual Marta Mothers.
Car park,
so Perry would have to drop me, go park the car, do all this, and Mum was like, let me just drop you in, I'm so close. So we did that. My mum took us in. I was breathing through the contractions in the car, but I was in a lot of pain. Made it to the Marta Mothers. We got into the observation room. I'm like, just like the movies, you know, breathing through it, but like quite in pain. And they do their little check, and she was like, oh, you're about 1 centimeters dilated. And I'm like, if you don't know about pregnancy, you have to be 10 centimeters to push. So I'm like, right at the beginning, not even close to the end. I was hoping I was going to be like a quarter or halfway, like at least like 4 centimeters would have been exciting to hear. I was 1 centimeters just. So I was like, after 8 hours, and I'm like, and she's like, but you seem to be handling the pain really well, so we'll send you home. We were there with all our hospital bags, everything ready to go, of course. And she was like, you seem to be breathing through it quite well. I'll give you a couple of Panadol and a sleeping pill. Go home, breathe through it, come back when you're in a lot of pain. Or at least, she said, at least go, we were like, how long do we go home for? She was like, at least for like another three or 4 hours, you know. So it's hard to tell, but at least try and go that long. And I was like, okay. We got home.
We had to call Mom to come all the way back, by the way.
My mom had to come pick us up, take us back to her house so we could swap cars.
And then go home.
And then go home. So we got, by the time we finally got home, which probably took an hour doing all that, I was in a lot of pain, and I said, Perry, let's just try and get some sleep, because we're going to be up for who knows how long. So let's just try and get some sleep. So we hopped into bed. I couldn't sleep. They just got stronger and stronger and more painful. Perry luckily got like a probably 3-hour nap, if that. Probably. And I'm so glad he got that, because you'll hear how the rest of it went. So by this point, we've been up all day Sunday. It's now 3 or 4, probably 4 a.m. in the morning. So we've been up for like a day and a half. I tried to lay down. I was in so much pain. I was on my ball. I got to the point where I was pretty much screaming, and I was like, Perry, I can't take this anymore. We need to go back. And we decided, let's not even bother Mum. Let's just go take our car. It makes the journey quicker. And I was in a lot of pain. I was like, was I screaming yet? I was like grunting really loud.
You're grunting a lot and like you're breathing. You're trying to control it, but you just couldn't control your breathing.
Oh, I was like,
She was
oh,
intense.
oh, like, you know, those type pains. Like I could, whereas before I was like, you know, breathing through it. But this time I was like, Perry, we need to go. So we get there. Perry parks out the front. He doesn't even go to the parking. He just parks out the front, walks me in. And he ended up leaving his car there the whole time.
Yeah,
but...
they even gave us a warning. They're like, yo, you can't park here for this law, blah, blah, blah.
In the waiting room, while we were waiting to get into the observation room, it must have been so busy, hey?
Yeah.
Because while we were waiting, I was throwing up.
Yeah.
The contractions were making me throw up. So I was throwing up. I was having contractions. There's this other pregnant woman in the waiting room and she's like, oh my God.
You're like screaming.
I was like,
yeah, it was
and they
so
couldn't get me
crazy.
even into an observation room, let alone a birthing suite. And I'm throwing up. I think it was a good, 30 minutes before we actually got into the observation room. Hey, I forgot about that. I was like, pulling Perry's t-shirt. He was like, babe, let go. I was like, I need something to pull.
I was like, just hold my hand, relax.
I needed to pull something, and you can't really pull a hand. Pulling his shirt, I don't know, did something for me. So try that when you're in labor. But I was like pulling his shirt, screaming like, I was like, I can't do this. And I'm thinking, surely I'm at least, like I said, 4 or 5 centimeters. Like I'm halfway by now. I am in pain. Like I've done well. We get in the observation room. They get someone in. Oh, you're still only 1 centimeter.
I think she said 1.5. It was a different person.
Yeah.
So it's like they all have their own little judgment of like what you are.
Yeah, they're not getting a ruler up there. They're using their fingers. So oh, you're like 1.5. And I'm like, sorry, what? Obviously, it's only been, by this point, probably another 5 hours potentially. But I'm screaming. And I thought I could at least, like I said, get to halfway without screaming. I'm 1.5 centimeters. This is just not what I expected. And I know some people can be really bad with pain, but I'm pretty good with pain.
Yeah.
I have quite a high tolerance. So Perry's never seen me in pain like this before.
Yeah,
what was it like seeing me like that?
It was honestly crazy. She just couldn't control herself. She couldn't really talk to me as well. I'm like, and all I can say is, are you okay? Can I grab you something? There's not much I can do.
Yeah.
Which is
you
honestly
feel
crazy.
Helpless,
yeah, honestly. And then she's pulling my shirt. And then she's like, I'm like, babe, hold my hand, just relax.
I need to.
I'm like, breathe. What else do I say?
Yeah.
And then she's pulling my shirt. And then your contractions were coming on what was it?
The first time we went in, the first time when I was breathing through it, she said I was having 3 to 4 contractions every 10 minutes by the time we got in.
Yeah.
And so this time, I think they were happening every 1 or 2 minutes, eh?
Honestly, you just couldn't breathe. The moment one went, she's like,
Straight
and then
back
next
again.
one will start coming. She's like, I can feel it coming.
Just so traumatic. Every
It was
minute,
crazy.
you're just catching your breath and it's going again. And I'm only at the beginning. My plan, I think Zeke is waking up. Are we being loud, baby? My plan was to go as long as I could without the epidural, or potentially, if I don't need it, don't use it. I was open to both. I was open to natural. I was open to epidural. But I thought, like I said, I would at least get halfway and be like, I've got halfway. Let's keep pushing. But I'm 1.5. It's been nearly 2 days by this point. No. By this point, it had been 12 hours. And I'm 1.5. I'm not even hey. Hi.
Look who's awake.
I know. Let me give him a moment to wake up. Oh, I'm sorry. He's looking at me like, Mom. What, you want to see what's going on?
You want to say hello?
Alright, so let's take a pause in the birthing story. This is, that way baby, Zeke, Kobe, Tachie. Hi baby. You want to say hi?
Her favorite movie.
I always wanted to do that. This is Zeke. This is the man that put me through the story we're about to tell you. And I'd do it all again.
If you guys have any questions about Zeke and his name as well, if you want us to explain all that, leave a comment down below.
We'll do a separate Zeke video.
Yeah, we'll do a video just about Zeke.
Yeah, anything you want to know about how he is as a baby, our routines, we'll definitely do separate videos. Like I said, there's so much for us to cover because we've been gone for so long. We can't do it all in one video. So we'll catch up on the birth and his little entrance into the world, and then we'll any other. Oh, I'm not allowed to touch your hands. No, okay. All right. So where were we? So we're in the observation room. I'm screaming. I'm pulling Perry. I'm a mess, and they kind of are leaving me in there at the moment because they're like, okay, she's in too much pain to send home, but I don't think they had, well, they definitely didn't have a birthing suite ready, and I was so low dilated, I don't think they wanted to give me one. I wasn't priority because I was so low, I guess. So they kind of just left us in the birthing suite, me screaming at Perry. Like he said, he had no idea what he was supposed to do, and my water broke. Yeah, so my water broke. I'm mid-contraction, like screaming, and I just feel gosh, like all this water come out, and I was like, I think my water just broke, babe, get someone. I think my water just broke. So I'm like, cool, maybe they'll let me in now. My water broke, something happened, you know, because we're probably in that observation room for at least an hour. Hey,
I think it was
hard
longer.
to tell. I think
it was moving towards 2 hours or so.
So, because then after my water broke, I was still probably in there for another hour after that. Honestly, hey, they couldn't get me in.
And because you're just in in a room,
tiny room,
you can't see outside. Nothing, you're not looking at the time, so it's just like, it just felt like a drag.
Yeah, my water breaks. They come in, and that's when we find out our complication, I guess. And they said, so your son has pooed in your uterus. It's called meconian. The poo is called meconian or whatever, or the disease that he could get is called meconian disease. And they basically said, he's pooed in your uterus, we're going to keep you on 24-hour watch now. They were monitoring his stress levels, his heartbeat. They said he's not stressed.
He was calm.
But yeah, his heartbeat was perfect. They said, but the moment he gets distressed, or it takes too long to get him out naturally, this could end in a C-section. And say, Daddy, I want to see. I want to see. Okay, so back to, sorry, babies are so distracting. Wow. I was not opposed to the C-section idea. I was very large, so I always thought that there could be a chance that he could end up in a C-section just because of how big my belly was, and I was just concerned about him coming out. Of course you're hungry. All right, pause. We're going to feed him.
We're back and better.
And Zeke is full, so he's a happy man. Are you happy? Yeah? Are you happy? Yeah, they put like the straps on my belly. They're like, we're gonna put you on 24-hour watch. What we're gonna do is give you a whole bunch of hormones to try and make your contractions come faster and stronger. And I'm thinking, they're coming every minute and I'm screaming, how much faster and stronger do you want them? But all right. Yeah, they said they're gonna put me on the highest dose of hormones to try and get him out naturally. Because they said if he stays in there too long, the worst case scenario is it goes into their lungs. They breathe it into their lungs. That stressed me out, but we're big believers in not stressing, like, at the same time. So we just say a prayer and we don't worry. So that's what we did. We were like, okay, that's fine. He's gonna come out. Everything's gonna be okay. God is watching over our little man. So anyway, they finally get us a midwife and a birthing suite after all this time. Yeah, tell them. So we are wheeling into the birthing suite. My water like just keeps coming out. I'm screaming. Doctors come in and they say, you know, what's your plan? And like I said, I was going to try and go as long as I could without the epidural. I was like, I want the epidural. They did not even try and talk me out of it. They were like, yep, no problem, we'll get it straight in here. Because from there is where I just go a little bit blurry, obviously. But yeah, what was it like when they put the epidural in?
And then you had to hold her still from the front. You can't put your hands around the back at all. So I had to hold her still while they did all that. And then as Georgia was getting back into bed, then obviously more of her water.
It was just gushing
And also,
out.
It wasn't like clear water as it was.
Obviously,
it was brown, like his poo that was in there.
Which is just like lovely, like your partner just watching this brown stuff leak out of you. And like because I can't feel my legs, my wife had to like clean me in there.
Yeah,
like, it was just...
Exactly. So she was just like, you know, after that, she was so calm. She was just on a drip. And we were just in there for hours. Like hours and hours just sitting there. I swear I had like 10, 12 naps. I don't know.
So we were in the birthing suite for about at least 20 hours, I would say. At least.
Decided to move the car. That's when I found out that we had a little warning there. They would have towed it away, and if it was there any longer. I came back, and then like we had so many different midwives because of how long we were there. So like we had 3 different midwives, but they were all so nice, honestly. So doctors came in to check on George, and they're like, you know what, and they're like, you know, you've been here for X amount of hours. And to be honest, we have to start looking at what we're going to do because we can't leave him in there for too long. So
they kept checking me every 4 hours. Yeah. And every time, it was about half a centimetre. When we're in the birthing suite, they're like, oh, you're 2 centimetres. And then they checked again. They're like, oh, you're about 3. And it's like every 4 hours, I was getting either half or 1 centimetre at the most.
So they checked her again.
By the end of it, I got only up till 5.5.
Zeke was honestly so calm in there, so they weren't
He never
stressed
got
about.
stressed.
Yeah, they weren't stressed about him being in there for that
My
amount of
calm
time.
boy.
But then just came to the moment where doctors came in and were like, I don't think he's gonna fit. Like, he's not gonna come out either way, even if you do go natural.
But they told me that at the end of the 30-something hours of labor. Like, if they told me at the start,
Come here.
alright, go to daddy. Mommy's got a story to tell. Okay, so she was like, look, he is a really big baby. I don't think even if we were able to get him out naturally, even if magically you start becoming more dilated, I don't think he's gonna fit out. And I was like, okay, like I said 20 hours ago, I'm happy to get a C-section. I had already called my family the last 4-hour check. And said, look, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a C-section. Just letting you guys know in case we don't get time to call you before we go in. And yeah, I wasn't scared. I was ready to do that. It's nothing against doctors or midwives, but doctors like, you know, you should get a C-section. And then the midwife's like, but you're doing really well. You should try and do it natural. But everyone keeps saying at the end, they tell you like their advice and then say, no, but it's your choice. Like, you can do what you want. And I didn't know, like, what's the right thing to do? Should I be a woman and try and do this naturally? And I was happy to do that. So anyway, in the end, I'm like, let's do it. Let's go in for the C-section. So from that point, they start getting us ready.
Oh my god.
Like 5-10 people.
Everyone's just like running around in the room, grabbing this, grabbing that. And then they gave me a gown to wear.
Like his scrubs?
Yeah, scrubs to wear. That's the
yeah,
word.
so they're like, Perry, you go get dressed.
Like, everything was just happening so fast and we were so tired.
So then the anaesthetist came in. I hate saying that word, so don't come at me if I say it weird. So she was talking me through that. She's like, we're going to use the same hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flush out the epidural and then I'm going to put in the stronger medication, you know, right as we're about to go into the theatre. And I was like, yep, cool. We're ready to go in. Perry's dressed in scrubs, you know, and the doctors are getting all organised. Perry's dressed. We're ready to go. She's put the flush in and she said she's about to put the medication in. Boom. What happens, Perry?
There is another emergency C-section and they had to take George's theatre.
Yeah. So mine wasn't at an emergency state yet. It was at a high risk state. His heartbeat was fine. Technically, there wasn't anything to call it an emergency yet. Apparently there was 7 C-sections that night. So all the theatres were taken at this point. And we just had to wait for the next available. I was like, okay, all right, that's fine.
Not even 10 minutes later, and I swear, this girl starts screaming her head off, saying that she can feel her contractions.
That was probably the most traumatic part of the whole experience.
It was so hard to watch,
I think.
right? It was honestly so hard to watch.
Like, it was hard before, but now at this point, like I said, I think by the end, I had just reached 5 or 5.5 centimeters. So from 1 or 1.5 centimeters to 5.5 centimeters, I was on the epidural. I felt barely any pain, a bit of pain on one side, but barely any pain. I'm relaxed, I'm chilling, we're listening to music, we're just waiting for it all to happen. I have this 20 or 24-hour break, and then boom, contractions start coming back. But why? Because she flushed out my epidural, but she hadn't put the other pain medication in, because that anaesthetist got taken in to the emergency C-section birthing suite. So my anaesthetist was taken, my birthing suite was taken, and boom, contractions start coming back. No doctors are there. All I've got is a midwife and Perry, and I start screaming.
They start giving her some gas.
Like, you've just got to breathe through it. I can't breathe at this point. Like, I've been up for 3 days straight. I'm screaming. I'm exhausted. I've got no energy. Perry's exhausted. He's got no energy. And this midwife is our 3rd midwife. So she's just come onto shift. She hasn't even seen the whole... Yeah. I can't breathe. And she's telling me to breathe through it. And I'm like, lady, there is no breathing right now for me.
And she was like so confused.
She's like, I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm sorry. I've called another one.
Try the gas, try the gas.
I was like, where are they?
And then she has gas, and then she's like throwing up. So I'm holding the vomit bag, and she's vomiting in there.
And it got to the point where I was just throwing up on myself. Perry couldn't even catch it because I'm contracting and just throwing up in different directions. And it's just kind of going on me. It's down my face. It was so traumatic.
She was back to pulling my shirt. And she didn't let go.
Yeah, that was a lot. And so that went on for how long?
I'd say 45 to...
an hour. So it was like around an hour of that. And the reason why there was no other anesthetists I hate that word so much. But there was no more available. They had to call one in. So there was a guy on call and they had to wait for him to get into the hospital. He came in and he literally walked in through and was like, I'm so sorry, like this should never happen. He's like trying to quickly get it all together. A doctor comes in or someone comes in, they're like, okay, the birthing suite's ready. And she's like, all right, we're gonna get you in. And it was just after he gave me the epidural, hey?
Yeah.
So they start wheeling me in, you know, and my body had just gone through so much that I had such high adrenaline. So what was happening is I was having the shakes. And it wasn't because it was cold. Our birthing suite was not cold at all.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't. I was like, like shaking. And like, it was so bad that I was having like palpitations. Like I was laying on the board and I was like, They asked me for my name in the theater, like, what's your name? I was like, Georgia. And Perry was like, he didn't understand what was going on.
I was going to answer for you, but
was
I was like, I think you need to answer.
I have to answer. And he's like, babe, what are you do? Are you cold? Like, do you need another blanket? I just couldn't control my whole body. And before I know it, within like, it was like 10 minutes. By the time they started cutting me open. Like, that's how quick it was. It was like, in, onto the other board. People talking, this nurse is telling me she's doing this. The anesthetist is telling me he's putting more drugs into me.
The amount of drugs
they're rubbing ice on my body to see where I can feel. The doctors are getting ready and cleaning the area. There is like 15 people in there. It just all happened so quick. Within like 10 or 15 minutes, he was out. Like, I remember what they said to me. They were like, you're not going to feel any pain, but you'll feel everything. I was like, what? They're like, you're going to feel tugging, pulling, pushing, but you won't feel any pain. And I was like, how is that possible? How can you take away the pain and not the feeling? That's exactly how it felt. I couldn't feel any pain. Nothing hurt, but I could feel them moving my organs around. I could feel them pulling Zeke out. I could feel them pulling the placenta out afterwards even, like, and pushing and like, because obviously they get it out of this tiny hole and his head was like huge.
Because she was laying down. And I had like my arm around her like this, obviously, like, you know, holding her head, rubbing her head, telling her how beautiful she is. And then, like, I could feel her shoulders like moving, like her body's just being pulled and tugged and all this. And I was like looking at her, but I didn't want to say anything. Like, yo,
he didn't want to freak me out, but I was just breathing through it. I was like, this is weird. I was like, he's coming, our baby's
before
coming.
we knew it, they'll like drop the drapes. And then all of a sudden the drapes drop and there's the little baby
and
just
like,
he was like, he looked straight at me and they're like, just like Daddy.
Looks just like Dad.
Yeah, and he looked exactly like me, which was crazy. And it was just like, that second was just so quick. Basically after that, they took him away to go get checked, obviously.
It was I didn't get to hold him. That's probably the hardest part of all that. Like, forget all the contractions and pain. You know, you see all these movies and videos and I'm trying not to cry, but like, I was so looking forward to that first moment of holding him. I just wanted to, after all that, hold him, just even if it was for 1 second. And I thought, even though they did tell me a pediatrician would be there to check if the stuff got into his lungs, but I didn't understand that I wouldn't be able to hold him. So that was a lot. They showed me him and boom, straight away took him. And then they called Perry over, so they took Perry too. And you tell that part because I wasn't there.
Yeah, so they had him down, and then they had air. What do you call it? Like
oxygen.
They had oxygen to his mouth. Yeah, my bad. They had oxygen to his mouth, and they actually put like a little tube down into his lungs area to pull out all the gunk and stuff in there. And they put up like a whole syringe and a half full of stuff, and yeah, they were monitoring his air levels. And he was about like, I think he needed like about 50% of air or so. Like, they'll turn it down just to see how he'd react, but he was just working too hard while he was breathing. And then I actually got the chance to cut the cord. They left it a little bit longer so I could cut it. And yeah, it was just crazy looking at him. Like, it was just so surreal. I'm like, is this really like my son? And like, he looked just like me and was so weird.
He looks exactly like Perry. If you think he looks like Perry now, at birth, it was weird how much he looked like Perry. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, Perry was inside me. Crazy,
like, and yeah, so then basically, they just did the checks, had the oxygen on him, and then they transferred you onto another bed.
Then I went into a recovery room.
And I went with Zeke, and we went up to the NCCU, which is like the critical care unit, and then after that, they took me away. I don't know how long I was there for.
Because I saw you just after 6 a.m. because remember visiting hours
Yeah.
started again.
Exactly.
And we had him at 3:40 a.m. So you would have
Yeah.
been there for at least 3 hours.
Yeah, and then they needed to do a procedure to him. They had to put like the ventilator on. Obviously, it means it goes down his throat, and obviously they don't want the parent to see all this type of thing. So they actually sent me back to Georgia. That's when I went to Georgia, and she was just obviously out of it, just laying there.
And I was like, what's going on?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Because I don't think at that point I really understood how, because I hadn't seen him, how sick he was, or what was going on, or what was normal, because it's our first child. And I was so out of it too. Like, I'm in this room by myself, recovery room. Then they put me up into like my actual room. I just wanted Perry there to tell me. But yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot.
That first couple of hours, it felt like you weren't even there.
Exactly, yeah. It just seems like a blur because you're like, did this really happen?
So he came up, he told me what was going on. He was like, oh, they've got oxygen on him, they're working on him, there's quite a lot of it in his lungs. Because I hadn't really been told at this point.
And they did an x-ray while I was there so we could see everything that's in there, and basically...
They said that he's told me they were pulling it out.
Yeah, there was so much in his lungs.
He sent me the picture, like he said, with the tube of them pulling it out.
Yeah.
And so then obviously the first question I had was, when can I go see him? And the midwife said I have to be able to stand, have a shower, and be able to do a number one pee, because they just want to make sure I'm okay first before going down there. I ate, and then we tried to get me out of bed. I think it wasn't until about 10 a.m. that I was able to actually get in the shower. Perry had to shower me. He had to take me to the toilet. He had to dress me. I could barely move. Luckily, I was able to walk, but very slowly. Like, after a C-section, you feel like your life is in slow motion because you're walking so slow. And then it took me like a couple of hours to shower and get dressed, to be honest, because everything just takes so long, just like putting everything on. And so anyway, we got me showered, dressed, and I was able to pee pretty much straight away, which was great. But I don't think, we probably got down there till around like lunchtime or early afternoon. So yeah, we took me down in a wheelchair, and then you go into like this ward, and there's like 5 other babies. His condition was so critical that he was actually, every other baby was a premature baby, and they were tiny. There's a video on my Instagram of the first time I saw him. So I posted it on Mother's Day, but that video is how I saw him for the first time. He had like 16 different cords and tubes coming out of him. His oxygen, his feeding tube, the meconium tube where they were pulling it out. Yeah. There was the monitor stickers with cords coming out. There was a drip. There was something on his foot.
To monitor, yeah.
There was so many, and he was on
crazy.
this, what do they call the vibrating bed thing?
The ventilator.
Oh, ventilator.
Yeah, the ventilator.
So it like vibrates it to, like push his lungs to...
Yeah, it's shaking everything off.
Shaking all the poo off his lungs, I guess, and help him to breathe. Plus he had the oxygen. So there was all these sounds, plus he was vibrating. His eyes were closed, couldn't see his eyes. He wasn't making any sounds. He was on morphine as well, so a really low amount, like a baby amount, but it's just such a strange way to see your baby for the first time. I imagine being in my ward, breastfeeding him and cuddling him and figuring out how to do everything, and it was a lot, but one thing that Perry and also his parents really helped me with is like not crying over Zeke, making sure that I'm strong, and because he can feel all my energy, and I needed to be strong for him. So as much as we could, even Perry. What was that?
Why are you being traumatic for?
Even Perry, had to hold back tears as well. We're just trying to be as strong as we can and just be what he needed us to be, not what we were feeling, I guess.
Yeah, and honestly, the most crazy thing that really got us moving forward was each day that we came in, it was something better. Like, he was improving every day. Like,
we never got bad news.
We've turned down the oxygen a little bit. He's doing this, he's eating.
We've removed the tube that's pulling out the meconium.
Yeah, and all this. It's just really like, they said it's all on him. Like, it's his time. We can't do anything else now. It's more how he recovers, and he just needs time to recover.
Each baby chooses
how long they're going to take,
Yeah.
So, when we heard... Yeah, I'm talking about you. And then Georgia got discharged on the Thursday.
So yeah, I was there for 3 days. So each day after the first day, we would go 2 or 3 times a day. It was really hard because I had to recover as well, and that was the hardest part because I just wanted to be down there all day with him. But like I said, for the first like 3 or 4 days, we couldn't look in his eyes, we couldn't hold him, we could maybe like touch him on his belly. While I was still in the hospital, we couldn't really do anything, but you just wanted to sit next to him. I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to look at him. I just wanted to be next to him. But I also had to try and get colostrum, get my breast milk coming. I had to eat. I had to try and do a number 2, which is something really hard to do when you you know, just give birth. All I can say is the doctors and the nurses in the NCCU are amazing. Every single one of them. Yeah. They're just amazing, and you're just so blessed to have them, honestly.
With work, I actually took 4 weeks off work. So honestly, thank God that I did take 4 weeks and not 2 weeks, because he spent another 2.5 weeks in the hospital. And also on top of that, when we came home, Georgia wasn't able to really do things, like go up the stairs and everything, so I had to help her out.
C-section's no joke.
Yeah, so it's good that I had that time, and every day would wake up, would leave, would get there, go see him.
I was waking up earlier to pump.
Yeah, she was pumping at the same time, would go see him, then we'd come home, have dinner, sleep, wake up, and that was us for like 2 weeks.
The first week, we were going twice a day. We would wake up, like Perry said, I'd pump, would leave, would go for a couple of hours, would come back, then we'd go for a couple of hours again, and then we'd come back. So we started going once a day for about 5 or 6 hours, rather than 2-3 hour trips. Like Perry said, we got news every day that he was doing better. I think, yeah, the third or fourth day we got to look into his eyes and talk to him. I think the 4th or the 5th day we got to hold him for the first time. He still had all these cords and stuff, but we just got to hold him. And then I think the day after that, I breastfed.
Yeah, you had your first skin to skin and breastfed.
Yeah, first skin to skin and breastfeed in one day. And that was like the 5th or 6th day. Knowing that he was sick and that my breast milk could help him, I was just trying so hard, you know, getting up in the middle of the night. Colostrum was the hardest, but once the milk started coming in, just like pumping and making sure I do it every 2 hours to make it come. It is really hard making your breast milk come, but I was just so glad to do it, and now I've got so much for him. But yeah, like the 5th day I got to breastfeed him, and he latched straight away within like 2 minutes, eh? Yeah. He was just ready to go.
And he loved it, eh?
He loved it. He loved it. And fed for like 40 minutes on his first feed. Latched straight away, didn't let go. He did really well. And yeah, he just kept getting better and better. We got to bath him for the first day after his first week. So he'd never had like a bath. They wipe him down, but he hadn't had a proper bath. Oh, I got a big boy. What are you doing? So anyway, by the last week, he was moved to, or the last 3 days, he was moved to special care, which is like out of the intensive or critical care. And he's basically, they're just monitoring him, but he's doing fine. Like, he's pretty much ready to go home. Yeah. Right before they moved to special care, they said, look, he's probably gonna have to go home with an oxygen tank. And that was probably not the most upsetting part, but I don't know. Like I said, we just kept getting good news, and that was kind of the first bit of bad news, because he was so healthy at this point. He was talking to us a bit, he was smiling, breastfeeding so well, feeding so well, sleeping so well, doing everything so well. And then we thought, you know, eventually we're just going to take him home and we're going to have our little baby and we're going to be able to do all the things we wanted to do, like tummy time and put him in his swing and cuddle him and dress him up. And then they said he's going to have an oxygen tank. And we were like, okay, you know, maybe for a couple of weeks.
I honestly thought like maybe 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, I was like, so when do we come for a checkup? Do we have to come every couple of days, every week? And they said, oh no, probably like once a month. And we were like, what do you mean once a month? Like
probably up to like 6 months
3 to 6 months he could have an oxygen tank.
What about when he starts crawling and all this stuff?
Yeah.
And they were like,
I was like, what about his development?
They said it should be off by the time he starts crawling. And we're like, should be. Like, you know what I mean?
They can't give you a definite answer. And then we're like, what about taking to the shops? They're like, oh, we'll give you an oxygen tank that you can take, but you need to make sure you get home before it runs out. Like, we're just like, wow, this is going to be difficult, you know, to be honest. And that's fine. We were prepared and we're like, this is a journey God wants us to take. But about 3 or 4 days after they told us that, we took him home with no oxygen tank.
Yeah.
He made a full recovery.
Yeah, remember we came in that morning and there was one doctor, because they do their rounds, and the doctor was like, I'm sure we can send him home without a tank.
Let's start dropping his oxygen.
Let's start dropping his oxygen and see how he copes. And he honestly did amazing.
He did perfect, and for the last 24 hours he was there, he had no oxygen. They just monitored him for 24 hours without oxygen, and he did amazing. And then we came in the morning I was like, oh, is he ready for his feed? And she's like, yeah, the doctors have already done their rounds, but they're like, we missed the doctor's rounds. I was like, oh, okay, what'd they say? She's like, oh, well, after his next feed, once he wakes up, you can take him home.
And at this point, I was actually parking the car because Georgia was late to feed him. So,
yeah, I was rushing in.
Yeah, so I parked, and I'm just going to park the car, and then she, like, calls me, and then Georgia's like, we get to take him home.
She was like, oh, if you live close by, and you don't want to wait for his next feed, you can take him now if you want.
And we were like, looking at each other like,
I was like,
say less.
I was like, Perry, go get the car. I changed into, it was his first time in a onesie. I know that might be a normal thing, but after 2.5 weeks, it was his first time in a onesie because with all the cords and cables, he was never able to wear a onesie. We always had to put him in like bodysuits or like, you know, so that was such an exciting moment for me. I, you know, got him all changed, and Perry came back up. He's like, the car's parked, and we were like,
I wasn't even in there for 10 minutes before I went back.
And we were like, what do we do? She's like, yeah, you can take him. And we just walked out with our son, and it was just
just like walking out, and it's like,
because it was so big. They were like, oh, you don't even need a bassinet.
I know. I was like, do we need to sign anything? Like, do we need a?
They're like, no, you can just carry him out.
And they were just like walking out of the hospital, holding our baby. It was honestly crazy.
It was so surreal. It was so surreal. We were just like, we're taking him home. And then we got home on the couch and we FaceTime our family, and we're like, we're at home.
Because we didn't tell anyone that we're coming home with him, so it was just so quick. We got home and then we just like FaceTime. Then first thing we said was like, look. And they're like, what? You guys aren't even in the hospital?
Yeah, and he had no
honestly,
cords,
since
no
that
cables.
Since that day, he's been amazing.
Perfect.
He's been fine.
He's putting on weight. He's growing. He's every development thing, you know, check or that he needs to pass, he's passing with flying colours. Yeah. He's doing amazing. He's a perfect, healthy boy.
Caring, everything.
Everything's good. His eyesight's really strong. All we can say is the power of God and prayer and keeping faith and our family's prayers.
Yeah, we didn't doubt once.
You know, he's very chill. He's just such a happy, bubbly, calm baby, and we're so blessed. And yeah, so that is our crazy story. I know this was a long video, and we appreciate you guys watching till the end. I think I answered most questions that you guys probably had. Drop them below, and we will do a part 2 because there's just so much to our whole journey. It's hard to get it all in one video.
Honestly, thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. We appreciate you. Don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, and don't forget, if you want to know about Zeke as well, leave some questions you want to know about Zeke, even about George's pregnancy, like, you know, as well, like recovery, cravings, all that type of stuff. We can do a video on that.
Like Perry said, thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for being patient with this video. We will be posting more regularly now that I'm on maternity leave. And we love you guys so much, and we're so excited to have you as part of our family. There's a little baby.
We'll show him properly in the next video.
You guys can see him on my TikTok and Instagram anyway all the time. But
like Georgia said, we'll leave our socials down here. But yeah, thank you for watching today's video.
We love you.